Awesome. So good. Why don't we start, Khiro? Thank you for your time. It's a little after Christmas 2021, and everyone's on break. So appreciate you taking time and joining us on this call. So we're going to cover, for the benefit of all who will see the recording at some point soon, we're going to cover early topics around cybersecurity. This topic is really it is of high interest to almost anyone out there today. But we're going to try to make it a little bit more interesting, just covering what are the salient highlights of cybersecurity, what are the various formats or different topics that we hear, such as we hear of ransomware and we hear of phishing attacks. So we're just going to cover what they are. The intent of this call would literally be for you to get a better understanding of the overall cybersecurity market while making it a little bit fun, meaning we're going to cover some aspects of Khiro and his background in the space, what he has seen close up, given his background. So before we get there, I'd like to take a minute and just introduce Startup Grind, Khiro, for the benefit of the audience. So Startup Grind was started in 2010 and has become the largest community of startups, founders, and innovators, creators in the market. Our mission is to give startups everywhere the education and opportunities they need to build, grow, and scale their companies. Our code of conduct revolves around 4 key values. One, we believe in giving back. We believe in making friends. We believe in helping others. And we believe in doing good. So today, Startup Grind educates, inspires, and connects over 3.5 million entrepreneurs across 600 different chapters in about 125 different countries. So it's certainly got its arms around, and a lot of people around the world will see. In fact, your name is very much on the Startup Grind's website today if you have not seen it yet. Right? So for all those who will be interested, there's a lot more information about Startup Grind on startupgrind.com.
Excellent.
Okay. So cool. Nice to have you, Khiro, on this call. Let me take a moment and do the best I can to introduce you, but I'm going to request you to also take us through your background and how we've got to this point today. Right? So
sure.
Khiro, until recently, has been the CEO of NTT Securities Americas. He's based in Dallas, and in his role, he has planned and executed several organic and inorganic growth for NTT, including their acquisition of White Hat Security for about $300 million. So that must be a very interesting time, and I'd love to talk about that whole acquisition process. Prior to NTT, Khiro was at Dell as a managing director for their securities business. And prior to that, he spent some time at Wipro. More importantly for me on this call, Wipro is absolute domain expert when it comes down to cybersecurity, given the number of years experience that he spent as close up as it gets to the industry and its changing formats and priorities. So we'd love to get Khiro's unique perspective on this topic, and we'll dwell further as we talk along. Thanks, Khiro. Welcome.
Absolutely. Thanks, Harish. Thanks for having me here, and looking forward to our chat. And
Lovely.
Nothing more to add on the introduction.
Lovely. Good. So, Khiro, so I wanted to start sort of, how did you get to cybersecurity? I keep hearing of a lot of people talking about it. I also hear youngsters in other platforms talking about the exciting world of cybersecurity. There's also this, sort of almost like a fantasy, right? Cybersecurity sounds very, very exciting to everyone. The nitty-gritty is a different story. But I'm just curious, how did you get to where you are today, starting off with your days back in India?
Yeah, getting into cyber probably was, I would say, part design, part accidental. And I have been in this technology industry for 20 plus years, as you know, starting mostly on the application side when we were migrating over from a mainframe world to a distributed application world, and then spent many years there in different countries, moved into different roles, starting from Polaris days that where probably we met, and coming to Wipro days, again into applications and infrastructure for many years. And that was the time also the whole applications and technology infrastructure space was evolving in a big way. Coming to where I moved into cyber, I would say when I was running the strategy and M&A for the infrastructure and cloud business for Dell Services. It was a $2 billion portfolio for us, and we were in the middle of transforming that transforming from two perspectives, I would say. One is from being a legacy infrastructure and cloud player to a new generation infrastructure and cloud player, plus transforming the P&L. So as an M&A and strategy head, I was working with the business head and doing that. While analyzing the business portfolio, I looked at, we did have an opportunity to address, and which was a portfolio gap in the portfolio, and that was cybersecurity. So we were doing bits and pieces of cyber. Then in addition to my strategy role, I put together a business plan to start up a cyber business within Dell Services itself. So that's where it all started. Even though before that in Wipro, in parts and pieces, I was doing cyber, looking at a few acquisitions in the security space. When I was running the city P&L, we had a piece of security even there, but it was kind of small bits and pieces. The more orchestrated entry to cyber happened when I started or incubated the security business for Dell Services. And that was way back in 2014. So since then, it's been more into cyber than anything else. In 2016 onwards, it's only cyber for me. And it's been very exciting because the space is evolving a lot faster than any other segments in the industry today. And the space is more of a warfare rather than a one-sided innovation. And that makes the whole segment more exciting. My involvement is not very technical in this space because I came from a business side. But over a period of time, I have started appreciating the technical nitty-gritties in cyber and how it's playing a role in preventing the situations that many corporations are facing today. So that's where it all started. Now it's more of P&L as well as more of, I would say, getting involved in startup ecosystem, being advisor to startups, being able to invest in some of those startups. So it's multidimensional involvement now.
Very interesting. Yeah, I'd love to talk about the role that you play both as an advisor and an investor, and which are those markets, which are the segments. We'll certainly get there and get your perspective. But I think it'll be interesting for the audience to hear about, let's say, one very interesting experience that you had. Sort of take us through, if you could. For example, I know in the past you've talked about the Colonial Pipeline hack. That certainly made the news. I'm sure most people have heard about it, not just the size and scale, but the repercussions for a country as a whole. But it was, we only got to see what the news had to say. I'm sure there's a lot more to it. So could you just take us through as an example of what really happens at a cyber attack stage? What were the back of the scenes, kind of behind the scenes story of the Colonial attack?
Sure. And it's so coincidental that the whole Colonial Pipeline is based in Houston, and I happen to be in Houston right now, right? So as you know, Colonial Pipeline is one of the largest private pipeline or gas supplier in the country. It serves almost 45% plus of the gasoline or diesel or jet fuel need of the southeast and the east of the US states. It was an interesting episode, frankly, and as you mentioned, a lot has been spoken and talked about and analyzed about it. But the way I would summarize it, it all started from a small, I would say, negligence in terms of credential leak and not enough VPN protection around those applications. And that's when one of the billing systems actually got hacked. It is not a big applications. It was just a billing system, and they were not able to bill the customers when the trading or the business was going on. And they realized that it might lead to a bigger attack because pipeline or gas transportation is also considered as I would say, critical infrastructure for the country. If that happens, a lot of additional damages would happen. So they essentially went about closing all other operations of Colonial Pipeline to prevent any further attack. And they did not know how soon they could open the operations back. And that led to a lot of confusion in terms of, think about almost 45% of the one large country's large section is being hampered. So many flights got canceled. You might have heard about airports like Charlotte and few others where they canceled many flights by many days, or they rescheduled many flights. if the data has to be relied on, I would say 89% of Washington DC's gas stations went out or ran short on gas. And that led to gas prices going up. They had not seen this kind of prices in 14 years, or rather since 2014. Then interestingly, there was fist fights on the gas stations because there was a shortage of gas. There was a panic buying and many others. So we would never, in a typical ransomware attack, we would never relate to general public getting impacted, right? And imagine this was just a billing system attack. They did not even attack the operational technology, which is the core of some of the verticals like energy, utilities, and manufacturing, where those operational technologies comes with different protocols. So once protecting that is difficult, and once that has been hacked, getting those back is also even more difficult. So but tip of the spear was so dangerous, they went about getting $4.4 million ransom. So many state of emergencies were declared. As you remember, Biden administration came out with a state of emergency saying there would not be any restrictions in the amount of fuel that could be transported by road, because there are regulations around it. State governor of state of Georgia came back saying that there will be no taxes on fuel. And this is essentially to prevent any kind of civil unrest or civil impacts that will happen. We don't get to see all that in a typical, let's say, banking application getting hacked and they're paying hundreds of millions of dollars of ransoms and nobody knows about it because it gets settled. But imagine a Colonial Pipeline, always something about like water systems in Florida getting hacked and some water systems in some part of the world getting poisoned. What can happen to civic life? So I would say cyber is not only limited to technology, it's impacting lives too now.
Wow. It's almost unnerving to think about the potential someone who we don't know is causing a sort of a debilitating and a cascading effect of impact. And by the time it comes to the common person, it must be of a significant scale. So I can only imagine. Now, in the case of Colonial, what I read was that it was assumed to be coming out of the North Korean territory, but by and large, when these cyber attacks happen, are you able to pinpoint who's causing these attacks, or is it largely left open-ended?
No, it could be. It could be. In most of the cases, it could be, because after the attack has happened, you go into investigation, digital forensic, and try to figure out the path of attack. You look at the supply chain of attack at the back end, and many times it could be traced. But the transaction, the way it happens, be it the ransomware payment through Bitcoins or any other means of they extracting or they proliferating their means and leaking data online. Many times, even if you find the identity different, you cannot do much about it. For example, Colonial Pipeline, of course, they got a sizable portion of ransomware back or ransom paid back. But there is nothing that you could do in terms of once that is done and after they are out. But it could definitely be traced back. There are technologies, and that's another area of innovation happening. A lot of new technologies coming in where you can join the dots retrospective and figure out where it all happened from. And a lot of nation state actors are getting involved, as you mentioned, North Korea, China, and Russia. There are a lot of actors, and there are many favorite countries being attacked all the time. So, yeah.
It's just curious. Has the uptake in cyber crime, at least the large scale attack on big companies, corporations, all that, has that really happened, or is that sort of happening alongside the evolvement of the crypto world and the Bitcoin world? Or if Bitcoin and crypto was not mature yet, would this level of cyber attacks happen?
In cyber attack in the crypto world, you are saying?
No, in general words, because even in Colonial, the request was to pay them in Bitcoin. Many of the large scale ransomware I've read about, the payment is requested in crypto currencies to keep them anonymous. So I'm just curious: has crypto sort of given a little more, confidence to some of these attackers to do what they're doing?
It's a mode of collecting your payments, right? After you make an attack, it definitely expedites their ROI or expedite their gain process. But the whole crypto also is getting attacked. The whole space of crypto or crypto exchanges are getting attacked, starting to getting attacked even more. If data or information which have been published have to be believed, only in 2021, $8 billion of crypto currencies or crypto platforms being compromised. So the ransom coming from crypto exchanges. And it is not new. If you go, it goes back to, I would say 2014, 2015, when one of the leading crypto exchanges in Japan got attacked or went through a cyber attack, and they had to file for bankruptcy because it is all digital, and the moment it happens, and as we all know, regulations are still not strict, infrastructure is still not global enough, globally monitored enough. So that becomes I would say, easy playing field for some of the mature and seasoned attackers.
Okay, talking about size of these attacks, I read the average cost of a data breach last year, 2020, was about 3.86 million. And that has jumped to about $4.25 million this year per attack. So yeah, these are big numbers. So where is the real threat? Is it an organized crime trying to get large sums of money from organized companies or sectors and industries? Or is it really the consumer kind of attack individuals and take some money out? Where is the real threat for us?
No, real threat is in the enterprises, because that's where you can, or there is a potential to pay money, large sum of money. And the data breach amount that you mentioned, going from 3.8 to 4.23 or something million per breach, is not the ransomware payment that the companies pay. That essentially is the cost that an enterprise need to withstand to be able to get the operations back. For example, somebody gets attacked. What is that you need to do to be back on your feet? What you could have done in the past to not be able to be going through that attack? All those costs add up to, let's say, 4.23 million per breach. But the ransomware that you pay on top of that is a different calculation that is not accounted for. Now, imagine where there's, I would say, PII, which is personally identifiable information of customers being handled by various enterprises. If they are not able to protect those information, their whole business model is at risk. Their reputation is at risk. They might file bankruptcy. Hence, for them to pay money to release their PII or to be able to protect their data is of paramount importance. And that's what hackers know. Those probably are somebody who is not adequately protected will be the sitting duck, and they have to pay the money to release the information.
I was also reading about the WannaCry of 2017, and that size and scale. So 300,000 computers getting hacked, including state governments in India and US and other parts of the world. I honestly did not even realize these attacks were such large scale until I literally began doing a little bit more research in preparation for today. So these are, this is supposedly, WannaCry apparently cost a $4 billion loss, even all put together. So that's
absolutely,
that's a huge number.
Absolutely. And I'm not sure whether you heard about it, Harish, earlier this month itself, I think second week of December, Kronos, the online payroll platform, that got hacked. And when that got hacked, imagine the companies who are using Kronos to pay, or rather to have time being recorded and make payments based on the time being recorded of the employees. And mostly, let's say if there are contractor employees, hourly based employees, or full-time employees, whoever is getting paid by virtue of your time and using the Kronos platform, all of them went through a big issue, right? So it's not only about Kronos getting impacted, it's about users of Kronos getting impacted. Now, you don't have the data. You don't know how to pay your employees. Imagine some of the companies dealing with unions. And if they're dealing with unions, and if you're not making payment timely, and if you're making incorrect payment, you as a user of that particular platform are also at the risk. And
Mm.
Kronos, I'm not sure how much of back-to-back legal indemnification they will have. So as a user, when you buy a SaaS platform, you don't go and check what kind of protection you'll have if that SaaS platform gets hacked. So it's becoming very, very, I would say, tangled in terms of how to put your security structure in place, how to put your operational models in place, so that if something gets hacked in some part of the supply chain, either up the supply chain or down the supply chain, how would you be able to safeguard yourself from various kind of damages that you might go through? It could be a P&L damage, it could be a reputational risk, it could be competitive issues, many issues.
Yeah, I can imagine in today's world, more and more, everything that we use seems to be SaaS based in one way or the other. Even very small companies have a bunch of SaaS applications running, and everything seems to be hosted in some cloud. And yeah, I can imagine if one of them has to go off for a day, it has an effect on everything else.
Exactly.
So I can imagine.
So that goes back to users or user enterprises or platform or SaaS platforms to have their backup plan in place if something happens. I mean, mostly some of the mature SaaS companies hopefully will not have that, but you never know. So if something happens, what's your plan B? What's your resilience mode? How do you go about paying? So this business processes need to be in place to be able to cater to business scenarios like this.
There's so much to talk in that space. So let me shift a little bit. Now I want to just spend the next maybe 15, 20 minutes or so talking about these various types of cybersecurity, right? So the first one that I hear a lot about is phishing, or some call it social engineering. I see an incredible number of mails coming my way over the years. And at least two of them I recall were so perfectly crafted. I was certain it was an internal mail. I don't know how they do it. Fortunately, they don't do it too often, so we're able to avoid it. One of my colleagues got hit in between, and we had to redo all the back-end work for this person. So just curious, could you explain to us and the audience a little bit about phishing, or why is it called social engineering? And you know, the statistics-wise, 38% of all attacks in the US are phishing attacks. So it's a lot. And in fact, I picked up one more statistic which said that 5% of all emails today are phishing, and that's a huge number if you look at 5% of all emails across the US. So if you could explain phishing for us, please.
Sure. And phishing has been in the industry for a long time. And that is one of the easiest way of trying to break into somebody's infrastructure. It runs on the theory of probability, and the theory of probability probably I would say is a derived function here, and it depends on two factors. One is how accurately, as you rightly said, that you thought it was a real mail, right? That somebody has genuinely sent it. I have received many such emails myself, being in the industry, right? Some of them coming to me from, again, saying my boss calling from or mailing from Tokyo. So those kind of discussions can happen. Now, two things happen. One is most of the data, frankly, your email ID, the hierarchy structure are out. It's not such a huge secret. Some form or the other, it's out. Then you look at the role construct of many of these people, and then you try to customize some of those phishing, and which are called spear phishing. So you basically targeted phishing that you do. That, for example, let's say Harish is running this company, and he has this 50 different customers, 20 different direct reports. These are the direct reports handling with these customers. Can I construct an email asking your direct report number 5 to make a payment of $2 million to your customer number 3 or something of that nature? So that kind of orchestration needs more time, more accuracy, and that happens. But in general, phishing, if you look at it, is get an employee database, have a right kind of message being crafted, send out to a whole bunch of people together, hoping that at least somebody will catch it. And the moment somebody clicks on that spurious link, you have an entry to the whole corporate infrastructure or corporate application network. And that's the whole game starts. So even now, it is a huge issue. Many startups have come in, many startups will come in different ways of analyzing phishing, different forms of phishing. But it will come. It will continue to be there more because now we are talking about we going BYOD way or getting mobile enabled all applications, corporate applications, messages coming on mobile phone with various links. This space is also becoming very innovative from attacker standpoint as well as protector standpoint. So I would say, at least for foreseeable future, this is going to be a problem, and a lot of innovations will happen even in that.
I was curious. So if you look at phishing now, most of my mails are coming to my Outlook, for example. I can understand Gmail or the non-paid services, but when someone has an Outlook, for example, what responsibility does Microsoft in this case have in making sure that the mail coming to me is not a phishing email? Is there any expectation I have that Microsoft can be liable? Just curious, because they are getting, they're getting bombarded by these mails from specific locations, and they would have a much better way of identifying which is likely to be phishing or not.
So Microsoft as such, if you're just using a Microsoft Office suite of products to receive your mails, they would not be liable unless you subscribe to your spam protection or phishing protection solutions from them or any other vendor. And there are many such vendors. And there are many ways of figuring out whether it could be a phishing email, even if it is coming to your corporate network, even if it's coming through a Microsoft infrastructure. Mm-hmm. You would have seen quarantining. Some of the technologies, just when they look at run their, I would say, software through the emails that are coming in, they look at the content, and based on the content, they will say, this mail looks spurious. So we have kind of quarantined it in a zone. And they will send you a message saying, if you think this is a genuine sender or this mail is genuine, go and release it from this particular place so that it comes to your mail server. Otherwise, that gets segregated. There are new technologies coming, or there are new technologies already existing, which looks at or reads through the content of the email in an encrypted way rather than trying to siphon any information. And if they look at tonality of the email, they look at content of the email, they look at the receiver of the email and the pattern around it. There are machine learning and artificial intelligence algorithms being developed. For example, let's say Harish is used to receive this kind of emails from this set of people and this frequency, and they build a persona around it. And if they see any deviation that Harish is receiving a mail which talks about something else which he has not received for last 1 year, from a person which he has never heard, or from a domain that he has never heard, and they analyze the tonality of the sentences used in your email, and then they will say, okay, it will come with a banner saying, Harish, we are delivering this email. We are not quarantining or blocking it, but this seems to be a spurious email. Please validate it before you do. So a lot of things happening in that perspective. We cannot hold, for that matter, Microsoft responsible for why you're delivering those emails, but we need to have those new technologies being used to be able to sanitize. Even after that, there will be emails slipping through. And even after that, there will be someone in the organization who will be clicking on those links and compromising all the details.
Yeah. And fortunately, hopefully it will not change, but I'm just noting, when I look at the number of emails I get that I know upfront is phishing, it's because their language is terrible, or the way they construct their sentences, it is just so off that it's obvious. Yeah. Right? But if they become smart and truly intelligent in the language they use, I can imagine this being a threat. Every day you're wondering which email is genuine and which is not.
Absolutely. And imagine the more sophisticated the attacker is, the more technology savvy or user they are. To attack also, they're not going to do it manually. They are going to use a lot of technology to launch many of the attacks. So the more standardization they bring, the more artificial and machine learning usage that they use at their end to attack you, the more legible they will be seen, or the more legible they will look like. Yeah. And then it becomes even more difficult. So that's why I call it a warfare. It's a warfare because there is a set of people who are trying to attack all the time. And even if they get successful once, they have achieved it. But on the other side, you have a set of protectors who are trying to protect the organization every time. They cannot let even one opportunity go. So it's an interesting battle that way.
Yeah, that's what they call social engineering, because they seem to be always looking at behavior and using behavior in their email structures.
Yeah.
So good. So that's phishing. I hear a lot about phishing. The other one that we touched upon with respect to Colonial is the ransomware. How is that different? Just for the purpose of people understanding, how is ransomware different from phishing?
So phishing is a way of trying to get into your get access to your corporate infrastructure. So you click and then somebody executes a particular software, malicious software, then you get access, and then you either leak data or you lock data in form of ransomware, and then you demand for ransomware. So you can execute your ransomware attack through a phishing solution as well, right? But ransomware as a concept is essentially the traditional way of ransom, right? You are locking in a precious asset of an enterprise, be it data or infrastructure or application. And if it's a set of data, you are encrypting it. If it's a server or any other infrastructure, you are limiting the access of people who are supposed to get access to. And then you are saying that you get to get back the access only when you pay this amount of money. So that's ransomware for you. And ransomware is a quick gratification approach in terms of getting paid. And we spoke about the mode of payment around Bitcoin or any other crypto. And it's a faster way of getting your ROI back, right? Typically, if we look at a malicious attack that could happen through a phishing or any other attack means, the average number of days an attack goes unnoticed in an ecosystem is 250 plus days. So imagine by the time, it's almost a year, I would say 3/4 of a year gone, right? And by then the attack would have spread across multiple segments of the company, multiple applications and infrastructure, and then you have access to everything by then.
So it's slow. It is designed to be slow. So they penetrate your entire network, and then at some point they think they're a better advantage in knowing what's happening.
Exactly. It's not designed to be slow, frankly, because it's the systems are in such a way that you may not have access to the right thing at the right time. So you have to navigate through to find where you want to reach. And by the time by the red flags go in to detect where the attack is happening, it's pretty long if you don't have the right kind of security solutions in place.
And I was shocked again by this statistic specific to ransomware that there's an attack happening around the world every 11 seconds.
Though I have not heard that, but I'm sure it must be happening, even more frequent than that.
That's unbelievable. And a 20 billion damage in 2021 through ransomware alone.
Exactly. So you'll be surprised to hear, you might have heard already that in the attacker community, there are offerings called ransomware attack as a service. It's a SaaS offering. So basically, even Harish can go tomorrow and be an attacker by just subscribing to some ransomware attack solution that some hacker has already built up. You pay per use and you take that solution and attack anybody who you want to attack.
Incredible. Novel idea, but quite scary.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. The way they are innovating, the way they are collaborating on the attack side is far more than the protectors are collaborating, frankly. Right? There are platforms where they are exchanging information. There are groups where they are innovating together to attack. It's no longer some guy sitting in some basement trying to attack a particular computer in some third world country.
So it's an organized crime now. That's what.
Absolutely, much more than that, actually.
Interesting. Okay, so that's ransomware. The third one, and I've seen happen to me at least a couple of times, is denial of service. Denial of service, as I understand, is very similar, just that you are limited from accessing a service set that you expect. Again, it's some sort of a blackmail or ransom attack, but it's just that it tells you that you can't access what you want. Is that really the difference?
Yeah, so denial of service attack essentially is the way to look at it is, let's say a particular web server has a capacity to handle 1,000 requests a second. 1,000 web app is able to address 1,000 access request as second. But a hacker or attacker will have botnets across who will send out relentless number of access requests or to that particular web apps. If you just send 10,000 or 100,000, then that server will not be able to handle that many requests, and then it will kind of not be available for others. That's a denial of services attack. So you basically are propagating or bombarding so many requests in an automated way that the server is not able to stand the normal way of providing service.
Interesting. So I want to talk about this, a topic again everyone probably is interested in, which is how cybersecurity and the increasing use of the devices at home or IoTs, be it at home, be it in healthcare industry, be it in infrastructure in general. There's a proliferation, not just that, I seem to think that in the last 2 years, the willingness to have a large number of devices connected has really changed. And suddenly when you take account of how many of your devices are talking to your Wi-Fi, for example, it used to be 10, 12. Suddenly we're talking about 35, 50, in that range. And I'm sure each of these is a point of vulnerability from our point of view. So could you talk a little bit about the growth of IoT? Let's start off in a smart home construct first, and how that is relevant to cybersecurity attacks.
Oh, it's a huge topic as we speak, frankly. So IoT historically had been designed and developed keeping the functionalities in mind. And security had essentially been an afterthought. So many of the IoT devices have been built to solve a particular purpose, be it your smart TV, be it your smart fridge, or many of the gadgets that we carry around. Some of them are IP-based devices, some of them are not. Now, a smart home, and you can lock or unlock your HVAC or house from anywhere. You can operate your HVAC from anywhere. There's so many things coming in. Now, there is a bit of protocol difference between how an HVAC runs and how your tablet or phone runs. So, and there is no cross-pollination between the two. But you are operating all of them together. And that essentially means there are a lot of vulnerability points which are coming across. Especially if you look at IoT, even if, rather I would say these days people have started talking about security by design, even in IoT space, but most of the IoT which are currently in use, be it commercial setup or enterprise setup, which is B2B setup or B2C setup, they're still not protected enough. Now there has to be security solutions developed on those ecosystems to be able to run your business system. Think about the assembly line of a manufacturing company, or think about the robots doing surgery in a healthcare, or think about the gas turbine or the cooling plant in a power plant. That's the other side of the technology when they talk about operational technology. They run in a different set of protocols, be it your DMI or SCADA systems. They have their own ways of being coded, being written, or being handled. They used to be pretty safe earlier because it used to be air-gapped earlier. So an OT system was not talking to an IT system, but that is going away by virtue of digital transformation. And they're also coming mainstream. So the whole ecosystem of IT, IoT, and OT is creating a complex environment for some of the sectors who use that. And things like Industrial 4.0 or IIoT, which is Industrial IoT technologies, are becoming core topic for people to talk about how do we secure them from a security standpoint. And there are multiple technicalities, starting from applications to network to infrastructure level, various kind of protections need to be brought in, various kind of segmentation needs to be brought in to be able to protect that. But to summarize, I would say it's a huge issue. I would say next 4 or 5 years, it's going to be a huge area of innovation, investment, and analysis.
Yeah, I can imagine that is, on one hand, consumers are moving towards adopting a lot of these products in their home. On the other hand, a small little thing can get kind of unnerving. I'll give you an example. I the other day on my car, I guess the car company was doing its own software upgrade, and I happened to be seated in my car. The car was turned off. I was just waiting at a particular place for my child to come back, and I suddenly hear these sounds, from under the hood. And if the first thought is, oh my God, what is going on? Until I realized that they're doing something remotely. I don't know what, and none of us know exactly what is going on. But even the example of this Christmas, I understand Tesla cars had a light show yesterday, and while it was beautiful, and I saw some of it even on LinkedIn and other platforms, it just means that there is a control given to someone outside of yourself to manage something as important as your car.
And those are, you might also recall those days when Jeep got hacked.
Yes.
Many times people have broken into various controls of Tesla itself.
Yeah.
And the more proliferation of autonomous cars is going to throw up many more challenges. And from a protection or protector standpoint, service providers like us have started seeing how we could bring in solutions which will provide services or security services around that too. So, and of course, attackers are way ahead. They might be thinking, how can we get ahead of the protectors?
Yeah. But this is a game of cat and mouse. It sounds like, right?
Absolutely.
Go on until some technology is able to control it, which may be a long way down. The other piece that, again, relevant to everyone over here is all of us are working from home. And so therefore now you're using your own device or the company device, but in your home, in your network. It was 15 years ago, for example, in the Indian BPO construct, I remember how, when you were at a call center or a back office facility, you could not even bring out a sheet of paper from within the complex to outside the complex. It was monitored to the extent, and today, the same set of people are having the laptop sitting at home. How is that changing or shifting the perception of cybersecurity for the end clients? Let's say for a bank who's got a back office somewhere in the world, whose employees are actually now working from home as opposed to a secure network.
Yeah, in fact, a lot of change in behavior and adoption happened because of COVID. Right, COVID pushed everybody to work from home, which otherwise would have taken 10 years for a mentality shift, which actually happened outright in a couple of months. We talk about security. You spoke about BPO, analysts sitting in BPO offices, not being allowed to carry even a piece of paper, forget about USB drive or phones, right? Similarly, we had security operations centers where at one central place, people are supposed to sit and monitor the security events of our customers 24/7. But COVID did not allow us to be able to do that full time, because then we had to move people to their homes and still provide the services. And then you put processes in place, you put technology in place, and you put behavior in place to some extent. But we, of course, cannot replicate the kind of efficacy and efficiency that you are getting if everybody is working from at the same time or same place. Now, it is a good change to a great extent, but it's kind of more about being able to accept the change and still move on. Very difficult for many people initially it was, but now more and more people are getting more comfortable in getting things done from outside. Initial hiccups of, I would say, trust, initial issues of relying that my data is safe, definitely they are there, but as reporting or analytics or processes mature, a lot of this will be addressed. And of course, technology is also moving in that direction. For example, let's say a lot of discussions keep happening over a Zoom call or any other platform call. A lot of things are being spoken, a lot of presentations are being shown. But there is not many security solutions which are essentially protecting the information which are being discussed on this collaboration platform. But now people started thinking, how can we create a security solution which will essentially protect everything and anything which is being discussed on collaboration platforms like this? Because where you don't know where I am sitting and you don't know where I'm sitting and you don't know who is listening to this conversation or who is noting down what kind of information from the things which are being shown. That is pushing new kind of innovations to happen. And those technologies will also come in. And as I was mentioning, the thing which we could not do for a long time, probably the COVID situation did that. And a long list of innovations will happen or will follow to make the world more distributed, more digital, yet more connected.
Good. So, I mean, in a way, COVID has sort of increased the momentum for some of these technology solutions, right? It sounds like there's a whole entity of companies out there that are working overtime to ensure that if this is going to be a more medium-term kind of a environment, how do we keep everyone ahead? Because I remember reading about Accenture when COVID happened and Accenture said work from home, they deployed the entire Teams platform. So 400,000 users were deployed over an 8-day period. Which when you think of the size and scale of that problem, they were able to achieve it, and that's how they were able to get efficient as fast. And many could not, but to think of 400,000 deployments of a seamless platform over a week, incredible.
No joke, right? So that's where we get to see the potential of what is possible.
Yeah. Lovely. So potential of the possible out there. Let's talk about your role in sort of with the investor point of view. Where is the market headed, Khiro? I mean, for a small-time investor, for example, let's start there, a small-time investor. Where is he or she looking for opportunities in the securities world? And what is your take with respect to investment in the space?
Investment in the cyberspace. Right?
Yes.
So I think the way I look at is there are several situations or solutions. No, I would say situations that we need to handle from a cyber protector standpoint. Many things are coming up. So one has to look at what is the kind of problem, a particular solution that you are supposed to or you're planning to invest in. What kind of problem that solution is solving. How big is the problem that is going to solve or trying to solve? How integrated the solution is. Many times, cyber security as a space is a heavy point solution dominated innovation to a great extent. So every small innovation could be an innovation, but that might be solving a small piece of the problem. And if that piece of problem is also evolving at a pace, the life space or the rack space of that particular solution may be very small. So one is to understand at what stage of the problem's evolution the particular solution is. What is the size of the problem that it is solving? What is the longevity of the problem that it might be there? And those are the technical aspects that I usually look at when I try to identify opportunities to either invest or to be a part of their advisory team.
Interesting. Why don't we almost ending of our session, Khiro, but for the individual out here, all the individuals who are going to listen in, can you suggest, some of these may be very basic, but there may be certain things that one can do today to protect themselves. And there are maybe 3 segments that I keep thinking about, right? So one is us, the semi-technically savvy group of people. I don't go clicking the wrong link, so which is fine, but you never know, somebody might do it. So I would put myself in one category. The second category is the kids. Kids today don't seem to have any clue of what is right and wrong because everything is a link. And how does one address and explain to the kids? And the third is the most vulnerable population, which is the parent generation. They don't understand the difference between a good link and a bad link. So I know I don't want to go into details, but for the purpose of the audience listening in, what should be those 2-3 things that we be very careful about? And has that changed? Like from now onwards, do we be more careful about certain things?
Given the proliferation of access or digital access that we all are having across group, as you mentioned, right? Starting from kids to us to our elder generation. In the industry, we speak about a concept called zero trust philosophy. I think as users also, we should start practicing this zero trust as an approach. So if you have not used a link in the past, and if you're not sure about its credibility, first see that with a lens of suspicion. And you need to be sure that whatever you are clicking is not spurious. Look at some of the basic structure, whether it's a protected website, whether that locks and then we all see on the URL what is there, whether it's a name which you have heard somewhere, whether if you're not sure, can you do a quick Google search to check up if there's some credibility around that website before you go and click on that. That's at our end. Our elder generation, in fact, from a B2C or C2C standpoint, they are one of the most vulnerable segments because they are the late users of technology, the late user of new kind of devices. And there has to be some amount of awareness and education and training for them from age groups like ours or our kids to be able to help them. These are that's the 10 best practices, or these are the 10 known sites that you can do for what you want to do. Everything else, let's have a process of discussing and checking before you go ahead, right? Some kind of validation happen. For the younger generation, I would say it has to be more orchestrated because, in fact, this generation is kind of born into a digital world. So most of their life is going to be on the digital platforms. They would be probably learning about more platforms than you and I can learn about, and the speed at which they would be learning. While they are doing all that, they also need to go through some amount of cyber awareness, cyber training, or cyber education from a hygiene standpoint as to what kind of websites they should look at with a bit of suspicion and what kind of website they can be confident about. And it's not only about website access, it's also about participating in various forums, right? Some of the large social forums are there which are known. Some of them are not that known, but to what depth you are going in terms of contributing and participating in terms of information sharing and collaborating with people who you don't even know. So those are, that kind of training is, I think, becoming more and more imminent for the upcoming generation.
Yeah, it's that upcoming generation that I am definitely very concerned for, because I hear from my daughter's experiences and her friends. They keep getting stuff that they should not get. They only realize it post facto. They think everything is a joke. I've seen them getting all kinds of mails from different strangers. The very fact that they're opening to see the mail itself is concerning for me, but they don't seem to. And it's not just one, different kids in different batches and different classes. They're talking about it, which is a good thing. But they're all talking about it as an experience of having done something wrong. Right?
Yeah.
It's a matter of time when someone clicks the wrong link and that changes for their whatever it is. But
it's about other way to look at Harish is the more deterrents we use. Take the analogy of a house, right? If you want to protect your home from any kind of let's say attacks or miscreants, the more deterrents you use, the more difficult you make it for people to be accessed, the safer you'll be. Not necessarily that you'll never be attacked, but at least you'll be safer, relatively safer than others. Similarly, from a cyber world standpoint, more education about cyber hygiene, more protection around what we are doing, more ring fencing around the way we are approaching to things will keep us safe for longer time, not necessarily all the time.
I guess that is what it comes down to. Cybersecurity is all about being as safe as possible, but it's sort of like COVID. We tend to believe all of us will get it at some point, but we're doing everything we can to keep us from getting it now.
Absolutely. I think you summarized it well there.
Thank you so much. Pleasure chatting. I'm sure we'd love to invite you over again, and next time we go into some specific details of one of these areas. And Ramesh, I'm sure we'd love to have the second conversation with you. But for now, thank you so much for your time on a weekend. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. Have happy holidays, and we'll talk again.
Thank you so much, Harish. It was a pleasure chatting up and thinking about some of the things I usually don't think. So good. Great. Have a nice evening, and we'll speak soon. Bye.
Take care. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.